Nurses of Reddit, what's the most shocking, bizarre, or unexpected confession a patient has ever made to you right before they passed away? He didn't die, but had a patient come into the emergency room who had a partial airway obstruction. He thought he was a goner. He told his wife on the way in that he'd been having a decades-long affair. And of course he ended up being okay. The wife left his room and did not come back. What a selfish confession. He was ready to let his wife deal with that emotional turmoil, knowing that he was on his way out. Serves him right. I have a friend who had been married for years. One day, she gets a call her husband has been in a terrible accident. She is freaking out, obviously, and rushes to the hospital because the outlook is very grim. Once she gets there, I believe he was already in surgery, and they let her have his belongings. While she waited, she decided to look through his phone just to be close to him, see his last messages and whatnot, because those might be the last bits of him she gets to have. And then she finds all his messages with his affair partner. She told me she wasn't sure if she wanted him to die or if she wanted him to survive so she could kill him. He ended up surviving, and of course she left him. But I can't even imagine the craziness of emotions thinking you're going to lose your spouse, to finding out they have betrayed you all on a very small amount of time. I had an elderly lady in for shortness of breath. She was a very petite, but otherwise healthy 90-year-old. Lived independently at home. She had been with us for about 5 hours at this point. She's ready for imaging, so the husband goes to get her an overnight bag, and we head to imaging. Fully lucid, stable blood pressure, sinus rhythm, 99% sets on room air. Asks me to tell her husband when he came back that she loves him very much and has enjoyed her life with him. 15 minutes later we return to the room. I plug her monitor back into the podium and she arrests. She didn't get to tell him she loved him that one last time like I reassured her she would. I often think about that man. I think he would have shortly passed from a broken heart. The way he looked at her after 70+ years of marriage. I thought I'd add another true love death story. An elderly lady again in her 90s collapsed in the shower at home. She was the carer for her husband who had mild dementia. Her husband heard her fall, found her unconscious, and called the ambulance. She arrived lights and sirens with a GCS of 6, not awake, doesn't respond to verbal commands, but has a reflex response to pain. As she was being removed from the back of the ambulance, a colleague was assisting the husband out of the front of the ambulance. As he was exciting the ambulance, he had lost his footing, fell down, hit his head, and was also now unconscious. They both had catastrophic brain bleeds, were palliated in a bariatric bed together, and they both passed away within hours of each other, none the wiser that poor health had impacted them, and they never had to go through the pain of losing their life partner. I often think about their children and hope they can see the beauty in their passing amongst the grief. Brought a pediatric patient back for emergency heart surgery, about 14 years old. He was very nervous. Outlook looked grim. I held his hand as they began to induce anesthesia. He looked like he was about to cry. I told him there was nothing to worry about. He was gonna be just fine. He gripped my hand super tight as the propofol took hold, looked me in the eye, and said, "I'm going to die, aren't I?" I told him I would be there in PACU when he woke up. He died on the table. I was the last thing he ever saw. 8 years later, I still think about that kid. I still see his face, the fear in his eyes. I still feel guilty that I lied right to his face. Edit. Didn't expect this to get as much traction as it did, so I will clarify. I am in a much better place now. I'm still in pediatrics, but I have regular therapy and am in a strong place mentally. I appreciate all the kind words. The guilt I feel doesn't weigh on me like it did all those years ago, thankfully. Hug your kids and tell them you love them. If that was me on the table, I would much rather have a medical professional hold my hand and assure me it'll be okay, regardless of what they think the outcome will be. You provided comfort, assurance, and kindness in his last moments. You are amazing. Yeah, agreed. And what else is she supposed to do? In this case, being honest is the worst thing you can do. She can't just tell the kid, yeah, probably. Rest in peace. They shouldn't feel bad for lying when telling the truth would be so much worse. Honestly, if you weren't kind to him, then it would have been so much worse, because he was already scared, but he was scared with a friendly person holding his hand. I can only hope someone like you will be there for me if I need it like that. I've had a few people casually tell me, I'm going to die today. The first time someone who was awake, alert, and not in distress told me that, then died later that day, I was spooked. Then I learned to believe them. I'm not a nurse, but have several family members who are, and I've heard some strange stories from them about patients. My aunt was a hospice nurse, and they had a new patient arrive. No one knew much about him, except he had no family and no one came to visit him. He was in his late 60s, and his medical proxy was a lawyer. My aunt was in the guy's room one night checking on him, and the man bolted upright in bed from a deep sleep and screamed that she needed to protect him from the people on the floor, that we're going to take him away. She said it was almost like a scene from a horror movie. And just like that, the man collapsed back on the bed and went into cardiac arrest and died. It turned out the guy had been sentenced to life in prison for 2 homicides. He killed his ex-wife and her new boyfriend, and while serving his life sentence, he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and had somehow gotten compassionate parole. My aunt was convinced the people in the floor were demons coming to drag him to hell. No one came to the guy's funeral except for my aunt and the guy's lawyer. His kids abandoned him. I had almost the same exact thing happen when I was a prison nurse. Guy on hospice for pancreatic cancer, but he was still getting around, eating, occasionally causing trouble. I don't remember the specifics of his crime, but he had a murder charge and was in some white supremacist gangs. One night we hear screaming bloody murder coming from his cell, and he's backed up in the corner, trying to climb on the windowsill because he's acting like something on the floor is coming to get him. I grab meds, and the officers are going in when he collapses. He stays unresponsive until he dies later that morning. We had a lot of guys in that wing complain of things crawling under cots, pulling their blankets, and creeping outside their windows. I don't know if this fits in here, but the first death I witnessed was in a dementia ward. The patient has been sad and depressed as long as I'd known her. No matter what we did to cheer her up, it just didn't stick. One morning I went into her room to get her out of bed and make her ready for the day. She sat up in her bed with her feet straight out. She somehow looked like a little child, and she was smiling. Delighted that she looked happy, I exclaimed, "Are you already up, friend?" She answered, so happy and so smiley. "Yes, I'm going home today." I took her to the bathroom, and right there in my arms she went home. I was young, and it scared me back then, but now I cherish that memory. We should all be so lucky to leave the world happy and content. This is so profound. It's like before her death something gave her a glimpse of the afterlife. The dull, sad, confusing life she had with dementia was coming to an end, and her soul is to return back home. All of your kindness probably started to make a lot of sense to her right then.